Esther's been doing this a lot lately. She will be in the middle of a thought that suddenly she's aware has quite a bit of momentum, and she'll stop and say, from what mode of receiving did I get that thought? Did it come from alignment, or did it come from some need or for someone else's clamoring? You can get someone really picky in your life who gives you grief if you don't do this or this or this. It's like working somewhere where there are lots of rules, and so those rules sort of inspire your action. Oh, can't do that. Oh, can't do that. Well, that's a hard way to live, rather than being free to follow your inspiration. It's sort of like having to stop at a stoplight in the middle of the night when there's no traffic coming from any direction, and sit there for the full 2 minutes and 30 seconds until that light decides to free you from your bondage. And every fiber of your being says, this doesn't make any sense. But if I break this rule, there's probably a policeman in the bushes who's trolling for revenue who will give me grief. And so you've sort of trained yourself to do illogical things because other people have rules and requirements. And so a lot of your behavior, we love you so much, but a lot of your behavior is offered because you're worried about the negative thing that will happen if you don't do it, rather than because you're inspired by your inner being's understanding of what lovely road this will take you down, you see. And so if we're standing in any of your physical shoes, we'd be asking that question when a strong thought comes. Where'd it come from? That come from source and what my inner being knows about all the things I want? Or am I trying to keep something bad from happening? And as you start to sort that out, then you'll find yourself gravitating more to the thoughts that feel better and less reacting to the conditions that are also generating some impulses.
I think I don't trust myself enough to discern where it is coming from.
Well, that's why what we said earlier means so much. We encourage you to quiet your mind for 15 or 20 minutes so that you can feel what it feels like when you receive a thought. And right now, those just sound like words. And maybe it seems like a good idea. You probably aren't going to do it. Maybe it sounds like a good idea, but until you actually decide and meditate and quiet your mind and do it for a day or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, and then in meditation you actually, from a quieted mind, receive a thought and know you did, and then enthusiastically follow it where it leads you and see where it leads. Until you actually do that and have the experience of that, you can't know the power that we are asking you to tap into. And because you've tapped into that power without knowing you did it when you first met, nothing less than that will ever do. You're not ever going to be satisfied with less than that kind of dynamic relationship, where in the eyes of either one of you, you could do no wrong. And it wasn't because you were perfect. It was not because either one of you were perfect. It was because you were blinded by love. And that's what being in alignment with source energy is. You're blinded by love. The love is so dominant that it's all you know. And oh, that will serve you so well when you're blinded by love, when you're blinded by self-confidence, when you're blinded by clarity, when you just feel that. And how'd you get there? Oh, you just quieted your mind for a few minutes every morning. Big price to pay. And now thoughts are coming to you, and thoughts are coming to you, and thoughts are coming to you. And then you're moving through the universe, maybe with someone else, and maybe on your own that day. And the universe is so cooperative. Everywhere you turn, something sweet is happening to you. And you feel so blessed because you know for sure that everybody's not living like that, but you are. And why are you? Because you've tuned yourself to that frequency. And the receiving mode is such a strong signal that you know when to go this way, and you know when to go that way, and you know when to slow up, and you know when to go faster, and you know when to say this, and you know when to do that. You just get this intuitive knowing of dancing through life in a way, and others are looking at you and they're trying to figure out, what have you got going on? You said, I stopped minding my wife. I stopped trying to please others in my life. Oh, well, that doesn't seem like that would work out that well. Well, at first it didn't. Until I stopped caring, until I stopped performing, until I stopped living conditionally. I didn't know the power of living unconditionally. And that's really what emotional guidance is. This vortex hasn't turned into a condition yet. It's an unconditional, it's an unrelational, it's an financial. It's because it hasn't manifested into those things. And so it's a lot for us to ask you to take your attention away from all this juicy stuff that you can see and hear and smell and taste and touch, and put your attention upon this more subtle stuff that's all about emotion and how you feel. But if you care about being satisfied, we've told this story a bit, and those who've been hanging around might be a little ready for a new story, but it speaks so much to what we're talking about alignment is alignment, and what follows next always feels good. So Esther is tuned in, tapped in, turned on. She's feeling great. She's meditated for a while, and now she's come out of meditation this one morning, and she has a very powerful thought, very clear thought. Why don't you play around with this music system and see if you can figure it out? Because she didn't understand it. So she sat down and just started pushing buttons, and it started doing things in response to the different buttons that she was pushing. And because she was in alignment, and because we knew what buttons to push, she pushed good buttons. And all of a sudden, she's got music in her house in places that she's never heard it before. Because the house is wired. There are speakers everywhere in the gardens and the courtyards. In other words, it's a really wonderfully devised system that she did not understand. And now she discovers not only does she have volume everywhere, but she has choices. So she played a little of this and a little of this and a little of this, and was just having the best time. And then she discovered a station that was completely devoted to rap. As she listened, she liked the rhythm of it. She thought it was impressive, and she liked the message of it, most of it. So she just kept playing it and turning it up, and then she left it on, and she kind of walked around the house, and she listened to different rappers, and she learned some of them were more frequent. She listened for quite a long time, and then that was that. She went on with other things. And so the next day she meditated again. And the thing about meditation is that when your mind is really quiet, that means you have stopped the momentum of your own mind. And when a thought comes, that means it didn't come out of the momentum of your own mind. Can you hear that? So if you've managed to stop the momentum of your own mind, and then a thought comes, you have pretty good confidence that it came from your source. No matter what the thought is, has to be. If you're tuned in to the frequency of source and you receive a thought, it's source. And the thought was, it was so profound. Prepare yourself. The thought was, I really want to move all the furniture around in my living room. Now, because Esther knows about receiving, she didn't question it, although she did think, I should probably work on world peace or something like that, rather than just moving furniture around. So immediately that led to how to go about it, because she couldn't move it around herself. So she looked on the internet, we talked to you about that earlier, and found someone. And then 2 men in a truck showed up, and they're having a nice time. They're impressed with Esther's beautiful place. They want to know about her a little bit. They're talking about living in the area. And Esther said, isn't it nice that we're all here? And one of them said, I'm leaving. And Esther said, where? He said, Alabama. Esther said, why? He said, because I'm a rapper, and I've got some business already going there, and it just seems it'd be easier for me there than here. So Esther said, hold on a minute. So she went and pushed some buttons. Suddenly, really good rap, loud, all through the place. And his eyes are very big. He can't believe this has happened. Esther doesn't look the part. And she's really enjoying this, because now she gets it. She's witnessing what this has all been about. The whole music thing and the whole furniture moving thing, now it's occurring to her. Now she gets it. Now she knows it. She's in on it now. She's in on it now, and her eyes are twinkling and her body's moving, and she's just beside herself, because she can feel the magic of universal forces all working together towards something that hasn't completely manifested yet, but she knows it's good, whatever it is, because anything that feels this good has to be good, yes? So he says, what do you do? And Esther said, I'm a teacher. And he said, what do you teach? And Esther said, rap. And then she said, not so much that. So now he really wants to know about Esther, and Esther really wants him to know about law of attraction. She really wants him to know because he's about to go someplace else because what he's doing isn't working for him, and she can feel the power of his desire. And she liked him so much. In other words, she could feel his inner being and all the inner beings that are around his inner being and her inner being and all the inner beings that are around her inner being. Everybody in on this rendezvous. Do you know the power of the universe to get these two people together? The odds of getting these two people together, in other words, the odds of this happening, if you're looking at it in terms of mathematics, the odds are unspeakable. And yet in terms of law of attraction, it was 100% sure thing to do, just like you meeting your mate. And so Esther got some books and signed some books and pointed at some books. And as he's going out the gate, he's saying, what should I read first? And Esther said this, and listen to this. And as he went away, Esther's heart was happier than it maybe has ever been in her entire life. To get to experience the unfolding of something, because she is a teacher to the very core of her being. And here is someone so full of life and wanting something, wanting the keys that Esther holds the keys to. Esther knew what to put in his hands, and the timing of it was so perfect. He's emailing her now, he's texting her, he's letting her know how things are going. In other words, it was also a marriage made in heaven, so to speak. It was non-physical energies knowing the rightness of a rendezvous. And so once you begin to experience that kind of receiving, but what we're asking you to look for is that kind of recognition of what that was all about. Ready to be ready, to be ready, to be ready. And Esther doesn't even know a fraction of that story yet. There's so much more. She thinks she's exhilarated about what's going on with her grandchildren. To be in on something that fresh and new with someone, and to be able to anticipate where it's going, but to not have seen it yet, but then to be able to see it as it unfolds. What's better than that? Than to be tuned into the energy that creates worlds, and to be in a position where you, with the power of your own mind, can focus it in a way that it's meaningful to others. You see why we offer volume when we get excited. Esther translates our enthusiasm for you in volume, so that's why so often she's shouting at you. This is a really good time to be in physical form and to know what you know. You have so much leverage when you connect to this energy. It's not just the leverage and the power and then the results and productivity that comes from it, and when that's all there, but it's the joyful journey along the way. It's the pieces. Every piece of that was fun. The idea was fun. It felt so good, those first ideas. Ooh, the discovery was fun. Pushing that button was fun because of what it did next. And then trying that, and then trying that. It was fun, and then 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 it was really fun, and it's not done. You see, life is supposed to be satisfying to you. So that's why best sales job we've ever given, to get you to stop trying to please someone else in your life and reach for the satisfaction that confirms your connection to the energy that will really allow you to do wonderful things with them and for them. You see, most people in their struggle and in their effort, you're just sort of eking out a mediocre life. But when you connect to this energy, to this foresight, to this understanding, it's a big deal. Enough? One day, Jerry and Esther were in Texas. And it was raining, and they went to the post office, and they couldn't get into the post office because the flood was so big around it. And Jerry said, that's the Cibolo Creek. It must be out of its banks. So they called their friend Pat, who lived in San Antonio. They were north of San Antonio, north and west. And they said, hey, the Cibolo Creek's out of its banks, and we can't even get into the post office. And their friend said, thanks for letting us know, because the Cibolo Creek runs right through their 1,000-acre ranch. So they went to the pastures where that creek runs, and they got the cattle and the horses and the tractors out, and the creek came, and it flooded its banks, and the pastures were flooded, but none of their equipment and none of their cattle and none of their horses were in jeopardy. And their friend said, it sure is nice to have a friend upstream.